everyone, I'm Lavanya from YourPedia, and today we're going to learn about 7 things you should definitely avoid to get a 7 band in your speaking. Alright, now in this, I'm going to cover 7 things that you absolutely need to keep in mind as you're giving your interview in your IELTS exam, because these things, if you are not working on them, you will definitely not get a 7. You will be stuck at 5 or 6 or 6.5. And most of you will need at least a 7 in your speaking. Now, the first thing is giving short answers. In IELTS speaking, you must remember that there are 3 different parts. The first is general questions, the second is a cue card, and last is follow-up questions which are related to the cue card that you were given. In the general questions, most students actually give monosyllable answers in the very beginning. You should definitely avoid that. Avoid giving short answers. You have to make sure that you're saying at least 3 to 4 sentences in your general questions, and when you are in the follow-up questions, you are giving a long answer. As in, try saying at least 5 to 7 sentences. Give a complete comprehensive answer to whatever the examiner asks you. Because your goal should be that you speak more than the examiner. If you're given one sentence answers, then that would mean the examiner will ask you more and more questions. The more questions they ask you, the more confused and nervous you'll get. So the best strategy is to give long answers. All right. Now, while I'm saying that you avoid short answers and give long answers, I do not mean that you start saying anything that is not related to the question. Make sure whatever answer you're giving is in direct relation to what the examiner has asked you. That is very important. All right. Give the best points for before you move on to the extra stuff. The second tip is speaking for less than 2 minutes in your cue card. In the IELTS cue card, you're supposed to speak for maximum of 2 minutes. They always say that you can speak from 1 to 2 minutes. They will stop you after 2 minutes. But what this means is that you actually have to do your best to speak for at least a minute and 50 seconds or 2 minutes. Do not speak less than that. It gives you a bad band score. This is very important. I know in the cue card they have written that you can speak for it on the topic for 1 to 2 minutes, but they expect you to speak more. So always try your best that in your cue card you're speaking for at least 2 minutes. All right. It's okay if they pause you in between, if they stop you as you're saying something, but it is not okay if you stop too soon, because that will negatively impact your bad score. So you should make sure that you should practice enough cue cards that you have a habit of speaking for 2 minutes. And believe me, once you've practiced enough, you will always instinctively know when you have spoken for 2 minutes. Do not worry about that. You will have the timer in yourself after completing like even 7 to 8 cue cards. And a cue card practice is the most easiest thing ever. Just take a timer whenever you're practicing a cue card and do it. All right. Time yourself that, okay, can you speak on any topic given for 2 minutes, like an extempore? If you can, then great. If not, then you need to work on it. The next is the overuse of and, so, also, and also other variety of conjunctions. I believe that most of the students I have some sort of catchwords. This can be using and to join every sentence in the cue card. This can be repetition of so or also to begin the sentences. Or it could also be something like, most students love to use this like or basically these words too. So try to actually minimize the use of such words. I'm not saying that you cannot use and at all. You can use it, but there are also a variety of other conjunctions that can be used. Conjunctions are words that help you to combine two sentences. So using words that are a little bit more sophisticated, like however or alternatively, on one hand, on other hand, or moreover, furthermore, in addition. Words like these will really help you build up your band score, because they not only improve your vocabulary, but they also show that you have more, coherence and cohesion, and you're not repeating a certain word over and over again. This is very important, and it takes a little bit of practice to, let go of the crutch words. So try your best to use a variety of words in your answer. Okay, do not repeat the same word over and over again, especially in your cue card. Your cue card should not be just one paragraph or maybe even one sentence joined by 8 or 10 ands. All right, do your best to not do that. Use a variety of conjunctions. That is very important. Now let's move on to the fourth thing that you should definitely avoid. That is avoiding examiner's eyes. You should not be avoiding the examiner's eyes. This is actually important. Your body language will actually show how confident you are using the language. It's okay if you fumble a little while speaking. It's okay if you make a few grammatical errors. But if you visibly look a little too nervous, sort of, there is a level of anxiety that is considered normal for exam. But if you are very nervous, you physically look like, okay, you're very mellow and you're speaking in a very monotonous voice, then it seems like, okay, the examiner will think you're not comfortable there, speaking in this language, not that you're not comfortable giving the interview. So you have to try and fake being confident. If you're not confident, then just fake being confident for 15 minutes, right? It's just for 15 minutes that you have to try your best to be an extrovert, just for these 15 minutes. All right, do hand gestures, smile a lot, and make eye contact as much as possible. Appear confident. It is the key to actually acing your IELTS speaking. I believe the person who is more confident versus the person who is less confident with the same speaking skills will probably, get a lower score. If they are more confident, they will get a higher score. I have noticed so many times that people with the same speaking skill, but just because they're more confident, they can stress on certain words, they can be more expressionist, and that actually improves your band score. So be more confident. Okay, look in the eyes of the examiner and give your answers to your full capabilities. Do not be scared of the interview. All right. The next thing is avoid using informal language. This is something that also takes a little bit of practice. Informal languages mean anything that we use colloquially or something that we use with our friends in chat boxes, something like words like kids or chill, and even the use of pronoun you. This is crucial. Try not to use the pronoun you in your answer anywhere for IELTS speaking. If you address the invigilator directly, if you address the interviewer directly, it looks like you are at the same level and that it seems very informal. So you have to make sure you're avoiding that word. Another thing about using this pronoun is that once you use it, you keep on using it. So try to avoid it altogether. Use generalized words like talk about people, you talk about individuals, talk about he, she, you talk about them, talk about us, talk about yourself, but do not use the word pronoun you. All right, avoid it at all cost. Using it once in your exam is all right, but as I said before, that once you use you will definitely repeat it over and over again. It happens all the time. So make sure that you're avoiding words that are informal, that are used in our everyday, chatting language. Avoid using those like words like chill, kids, and even slang words, any kind of slang words, like, anything, you should definitely avoid it. This actually also includes using informal language, any words that are from your mother tongue. Sometimes what happens when you're speaking in a flow, we do accidentally end up using one or two words that are from our own mother tongue. For example, you can't think of a word and then you say, matlab, things like that. Try to avoid doing that. Do not use words from your own language. Okay? Stick to English. Think your answer through. It's okay. You can take a minute or so, think your answers carefully, and then make sure that whatever you answer is comprehensive, it is, knowledgeable, and also it is very formal. Sixth rule, avoid grammatical errors. I believe that this was a very well known and also kind of predictable. You have to avoid grammatical errors. This includes making sure that you're using the correct tenses, that you are using the correct adjectives, you're using the correct pronouns, and you're using the correct articles. These things do matter a lot, especially in speaking when it's very obvious that you have made a grammatical error. So make sure that you give your best and you practice a lot just so you won't commit any, silly grammatical errors that could have been avoided. I've also noticed that many students make more grammatical errors just because they are nervous. So as I said, be confident, beat that nervousness out of yourself, because you need to make sure that you're grammatically correct while you're doing your IELTS speaking. All right. And in this, I do believe the biggest focus should be on your tenses. The reason we need to focus on tenses is that if you mess up the tense, it actually becomes hard for the examiner to know what you're talking about. For example, they asked you about an experience you had while watching a football match. Now, in this, you might be talking about something that happened just recently, or you might be talking about something that happened a decade ago. But in this, if you use the wrong tense, it gives a very confusing feeling. Like the examiner will get confused what you're talking about, and that will really, impact your speaking score. So make sure that you practice your tenses and that you make sure you're saying grammatically correct sentences. All right. Then the last rule and the golden rule for today is to avoid not practicing, as in practice the most, practice a lot. I know most of you will believe that, okay, we are fluent in English, so it's all right, we'll get a good band score. But that's not how it works. As I said before, there are certain things that you need to keep in mind for IELTS speaking. It is not just about being fluent in a language, it is an interview and it has its own set of rules. You have to make sure that in the general questions you say at least 3 to 4 sentences, and your cue card you avoid using overuse of and or so, that you avoid using you, the specific pronoun, and that you give a very comprehensive answer that lasts for 2 minutes. In your follow-up questions, you need to say at least 5 to 6 or 7 sentences. Now, these things are not the same for all the interviews you've given before in your previous life, right? So in IELTS, you need to practice for IELTS speaking specifically. But look up cue cards and do those cue cards. Enroll yourself in YourPedia and practice with us. All right, do your best and practice a lot because practice is everything. Okay, so this was the end of my 7 tips for you to avoid getting a low score band in your IELTS. Do your best and keep on practicing. I'll see you next week with another video.